Welcome to the Unlearn podcast. On this show, I'm delighted to be joined by William Carbone. Now, William is an AI expert, former IBMer, and seasoned entrepreneur with over a decade of experience in aerospace, quantum computing, and AI. Now, I've got to know William over the last 18 months through our venture studio, Nobody Studios, where he is the CEO and co-founder of one of our star businesses, Evalify, an AI-powered SaaS business to help investors understand the power and impact of intellectual property and patents on their business ideas. Over the time, working with William and his co-founder Nick has been an absolute joy. Seeing them iterate their product, test and learn, find product market fit, and begin to scale. It's one of the first companies in our studio to start raising its own external capital and ready to leave the nest that is our studio. I'm extremely excited for him to share his story, the twists and turns, the pivots, the paths, the focus that they had to do to achieve product market fit and take this business to the next level. So before we get started, let's learn a little bit about where it all began for William.
Enjoying the podcast? Don't forget to subscribe and follow us on YouTube. This way, you won't miss any episode and it greatly supports our podcast.
Okay, so we've known each other now for like a number of years. It's been super fun working together in Nobody Studios, seeing you grow as an entrepreneur, seeing the business that you're working on at Evalify continue to grow. But it's always sort of fascinating to dive back into people's stories about how they got started. And when I think about you, it's almost like if you look back in your own sort of life, your career, was there sort of a moment that maybe at the time it maybe didn't mean a huge amount, but in retrospect, it was one of these like sort of seminal moments or a real sort of inflection point for you about a lesson you learned that has really helped you as you sort of go forward to what you're doing today?
Yeah, hi Barry. Yeah, I would say when I look back, there are a number of dots that are connected to each other in terms of how did I get here and what exactly has made me to get here. And it's actually fascinating to me. It's kind of, how do I know which one has contributed more effectively to that one? I think in this transformative journey of entrepreneuring, that's how I like to define it. It's like you have to always be kind of on the edge and your brain rewires in a different way. And there are so many different steps on the way that help your brain to rewire itself. But I would say the first one is, let's say, getting out of the corporate life, right? You have different steps inside the corporate life to get into certain position, then realizing like how you, what you're going to do next, right? And there is no one making things for you. It's not a protective environment. You have to take the tools on the way and find a way. So that has been really like fascinating to do it, in a more adult age, not just, before joining the university. And that has been like, we can talk deeper about that experience, but it has been transformative on itself for me.
Well, you are someone I also noticed who's very open and interesting at trying new things and like picking things up. Like most people might know you're a fabulous musician, like amazing piano player. You've never been taught, you've learned it all yourself. What are some of the things you think about when you think about the parallels about teaching yourself really to become like a concert level pianist, similar to when you started to learn your own entrepreneurial journey?
Oh, there's so many there. For example, I felt, this gift of music I didn't even know about. First time was, I was a child, 5 years old. I was listening to songs and trying to play them on the piano like a game. So it was always a game for me, very playful environment. And there was not a structure. So I always kind of refused to have a teacher or someone who would teach me how to learn music somehow. I said, yeah, but I feel like sometimes inside of me, like something is calling me to, to just play the piano. And that thing actually became, as you were mentioning, into a bigger level, bigger scale, like, was part of an orchestra. And then you actually learn how to play with musicians and stuff. Like the fun part was also, how did I get to go to the orchestra? How did I pass the audition without reading the music? That's another one. But in principle, what really helped me was concepts that come from music, like orchestration you use that even in IT architecture a lot. And it's a term that comes from music, because you have to put people together to work towards a common mission. And in the case of IT architecture, you actually put systems together, how they harmonize together. So we keep using a lot of musical terms. And as a parallel, music has always been there for me in the journey, even in difficult times or more challenging situations. It has been always a space where I could find myself, I could express myself. With that in mind, it was more about the expression of my feelings rather than playing someone else's music with their own intentions. Of course, I learned also the classics and so on, but at the base for me was, okay, the hands are a musical instrument itself. The piano is an instrument. It's a tool to express your feelings. And how to transpose that also in the entrepreneurship life, that's a big question, because sometimes the way that the entrepreneurship life is designed does not let much of that world enter. And I feel it will be a better world if we will let, less KPIs, but more like the human side of that into our very strict world of entrepreneurship.
Well, why I wanted to ask you about this is we had Elliot Parker on the show recently, and he's one of the managing directors at a venture studio called High Alpha, which again is a fantastic venture studio, without doubt one of the best in the world. And he spent a lot of time talking about why it's actually not a good idea to have objectives. That really something that's more interesting is to wander, to make space to sort of follow your curiosity. And actually, if people sort of dig up and try and find these things that they're curious about, that they've interest and passion about, and then they connect with it, then they can sort of really go deep on these opportunities and, come up with very novel, interesting solutions. So this is one of the reasons I wanted to ask you about this, especially, as you compare that to this, as you say, this idea of learning music was playful. It was a game. It was a puzzle to solve that you wanted to solve, versus this sometimes entrepreneurial path where you're given these very rigid objectives, and then you're told you must do activities to get towards this objective. And they're two totally different systems and mechanisms or ways of operating. So when you think about like the problem that you've landed on as a passion project, this idea of understanding intellectual property and patents and protectability of ideas, what were some of the parallels, if you will? Like, did you have to wander to find that as a problem that you wanted to work on? Or did you feel it was like someone said to you, no, go solve this problem and here's the objective, and gave you marching orders? Like, tell us a little bit about your experience and some of the things you had to learn and maybe unlearn as you sort of pursued the area you're focused on now.
Absolutely. So after the corporate life, anyway, I was always driven by insatiable curiosity, as my friends say. And the idea was to create an innovation studio, an open innovation studio, so that it would be a reflection on of our personalities as founders, as employees later on, and it would be attracted to the studio. So one of the great things of that type of structure, we were a very different startup, if you want to call it that way, because we didn't really have rules, and KPIs. We wanted to, first of all, have ideas, file patents around them, so protect them and commercialize them. And it was fascinating to see how far we got with that, because we created our own methodology to understand ideas better in patents, and we found, all the places that were not leveraged, or there was a lot of untapped potential in that space, like in billions of dollars that have been spent on patents that have been just never commercialized, like 85% of them and more. So we said, okay, maybe there is an opportunity there. How we express our fullest potential with ideas and protect them and make them to see the light. And actually, the methodology was how we got in touch with Nobody Studios, because it was one of the podcasts that Mark was in, like early stage. I think it was like 3 years ago. He recorded that. He left his email, and so we got in touch with Mark from Nobody Studios, thanks to the podcast, and we started the conversation. We saw that the VC world had not so much focus, actually no focus at the early stage on IP. And then we said, okay, that's something we could leverage on. We could contribute to what we understood in the last 2 years with our methodology. And that's how we basically landed with the idea then of Evalify, because it verticalizes all the learnings from the methodology into a single VC industry vertical. At least it's what we, let's say, sacrifice from all the other industries that we wanted to tackle at the beginning. But we found out that that's a pain point that needs a lot of attention now. Just to give an idea, like the Evalify is capable of de-risking investments on starting from as simple as a pitch deck. And we were able even to create these like little miracles, if you want to use a religious term, of scanning over 200 million patents, 170 jurisdictions worldwide, everything in English. So you don't have to worry if your idea gets scanned into a Chinese patent and you still get the result. And coming up with a score, so something is simplified and moves the needle from the heavy Series A type of due diligence mentality into the early stage. As soon as you're an investor and you get a pitch deck early on in your email box, even you want to put it in our system, you get a score and you understand if that startup is worth investing on or not.
Yeah, no, it's pretty transformational sort of idea. And for me, it's a great example of, if you will, sort of unlearning how people can do diligence when they're building products, right? Like for me, when I think about lawyers, when I think about intellectual property, when I think about patents, the only things that come to my mind is it's going to take a long time. It's going to be very expensive. And, why would I do that? Even if I'm making a big investment, it's not something that's often done by some of these venture capitalists. And yet what you have sort of created is this ability within minutes, for a couple of $100 to suddenly have this really competitive insight about whether an idea has high patentability, high concentration of other IP. So maybe he's already at risk that they could be infringing an idea, even if they think it's novel. And when you're an investor and you're about to write, a couple of $1 million check, why wouldn't you spend a couple of $100 rather than spend tens of thousands of dollars and wait weeks to find out, how protectable an idea is, which is fascinating. So tell us a little bit about how you did this, because I've seen, it's some of your work. This, it's a big thing for people to unlearn this idea that they can actually have confidence in the protectability of an idea in moments rather than having to wait weeks to go through legal processes and how hard it is. So tell us a little bit about some of the things you had to unlearn to build this idea, if you will, and what were some of the tools and the technologies that evolved, if you will, that have allowed you the opportunity to create this product?
Yeah, that's a great question. I've been working in AI for like 10 years now, and I've seen a different evolutions. I was back at IBM, and we're working on contract types of tools that would understand from a contract different types of deliverables. And the AI wasn't so advanced back then, right? It was advanced for the time being, but it was not widely available like this today. So I think there have been, in the unlearning part, we had to unlearn even how to adapt these new technologies, and they were growing really fast. In the past 2 years, we have seen an incredible increase of, not only availability but advancements of these tools. I just remember back then, if we wanted to extract a table and revisualize a table inside a Word document, from a PDF, from an image, was the biggest challenge all the time, like 10 years ago. And now it's so easy and possible with AI. So this is all enablers for us to create a tool like Evalify. And I would say that three years ago would have been possible with a lot of heavy investments, like several tens of millions. Now it was possible with minimum investment, being part of the studio. And the way we had to learn was, so first of all, our experience in AI was an advantage, right? Because we know which tools to use, we knew how to navigate in there, but it was more about the efficiency. So how to make it available to a wider audience, how to make it in the cloud, but also we felt like we knew about the VC industry, but the biggest unlearning there was how to make the industry to unlearn how they approach IP. That was the biggest challenge, right? And And it's actually a daily challenge, because as soon as you talk to an investor about IP or patents, they freeze. They think about lawyers. They think about how to call them, and it's 1 hour call, $500 per hour, and this is all the stream that goes. And they think about due diligence, and they didn't connect yet that apart from very few investors, that the power of IP can reside even in the early stage. And we are aware that, of course, we need to like the team, because it's always a marriage. You're going to be with them like 10 years at least with the investment. The technology, the market, they have different tools to assess that. But what the IP gives is an additional data point for their investment. So our scope is never to substitute everything with one score. And we want to rely also on their gut feeling, of course, but then give them more information in order to make that decision. And I would say that the biggest challenge for us and for the investors is to understand that the IP can be a valued friend and partner in that scope. It was just simply not available before at this level. It was only available by some tools that patent firms would use in a very restricted and expensive space, like paying heavy licenses. So we simplify that process for investors. But the journey took us a lot of unlearning, let's say, from demystifying how the VC industry works to how we founders would relate to that, because the tool is also available for founders, right? So we created a tool that is now even serving both industries in a very good way.
Yeah, it's fascinating to hear you talk about having to help an industry unlearn. One thing in my own career that was really interesting for me was around sort of 2010. And I was working in a company called ThoughtWorks. And one of my colleagues at the time, or two of them actually, had written about this book called Continuous Delivery. And the idea with continuous delivery is that instead of doing software releases like once every 6 months, you actually try to do hundreds of software releases a day. Like every single change you try and push to production. So you do lots of these sort of small, frequent changes and put them in production, and you sort of allow yourself to iterate. Like you might make a mistake, you can iterate it and recover. And the thing that sort of unlocked a lot of those capabilities was things like cloud infrastructure, and AWS was having all these great sort of services that you could spin up production-like instances for like $5, do a deployment onto it using automations and test it, right? But for the rest of the world at the time, they were still like on these tin can servers. The thought of using automation or not having to stop people going to their website to like take it down and do a deployment and bring it back up again, like they literally thought we were crazy, because they were so locked into the sort of current paradigm about how something works. It's like, no, it's impossible to squeeze everything that we do in a sort of 4-week cycle to do a software release into like 7 seconds. No, it's not possible, and then it's one of these things where you're like, no, you don't use the same techniques that you use today. You use different techniques that enabled by automation, by access to data, by the ability to create models or machine learning models or data models that allow you to sort of synthesize a lot of the knowledge and give you results quicker. And I feel like we're sort of in another one of these moments sometimes with like the promise of what artificial intelligence and these tools offer with cloud computing and these tools, right? It's not that we're taking the humans out of the process. It's we're allowing them to focus on high value tasks and then doing this huge amount of like number crunching and data crunching in the background and serving up these insights, as you described, to go with what they're doing. And they can look at vast data sets and they can do it at a fraction of the cost. So as you say, with an Evalify, where previously VCs, as you say, would just freeze when someone goes, well, is this patentable? What's the intellectual property around this? They would just freeze and think, no, that's weeks, that's thousands of dollars. But now you're talking about providing them an answer in minutes for hundreds of dollars. And that to me is like transformational. And yet it's so far removed from their existing mental model that it, as you say, most people just don't, they can't land for them straight away. So what have been some of the things you've had to do, if you will, to help the industry almost unlearn how this insight that you can offer from intellectual property rights and patentability can actually help them make better investment decisions, faster, cheaper, sooner, with higher sort of quality and conviction, because you're providing this extra insight to them?
For sure, no, that's great. The first step is also the terminology, right? We had to move out from what is called like the freedom to operate analysis or preliminary freedom to operate analysis into new terms like patent viability assessment. That resonates much better with VCs. And we came from an IP background as well, both in the Finnish company, but also in the company we had before. And then IBM itself, that's how actually I met my co-founder we started to make patents together. So we came from that world, and there was a lot of terminology that for us was completely normal to know. The abstract, the claims of a patent, the patent name actually itself, and let's say the glossary in the terminology, but then also making them to understand how, let's say, their past investments have a direction on IP as well, and how that can be compass in your investment. So what we did independently, like it was a fun exercise. We took all the successful unicorns like Uber and others, and unsuccessful ones, basically like Jawbone, basically companies that have raised several hundreds of millions of dollars, like even billions sometimes, and they actually failed on the way in a way that they didn't know even why sometimes. We found a correlation on, let's take a pitch deck from Uber 2008, like first ever pitch deck that you can find online, loaded in our system with the data, because we have actually our own patent time machine, by the way, that the users can try as well. It's a retrospective analysis. Back then, what was the patent landscape? And was this idea viable? Was this idea good? Was it innovative? And actually, Uber, for example, had a very high score on the patent in the patent viability assessment, while companies like Jawbone, they know that their market was already populated with patents. So the patent can be actually an indicator of competitors, a big one, because you can see like how the market is behaving, what are the technologies that have been introduced, and what is the innovation that has been introduced in that and by whom, right? In that field and by whom. So these are all great indicators that are simply not available, or maybe no one has the intuition to look for them and find competitors for a startup. But now we do, and it's available. And so all these steps, they were like learning and unlearning how to do, like introducing a new way, unlearning how the industry is doing that, and then relearning even with them. So we are learning with investors what are the their needs and their requirements in terms of an investment. And it's like an iterative process, like what we were saying before. Every single software update, like you would do it hundreds per day. That seems like that, like demo calls, or it's like a polarized type of spectrum of understanding. Even by geography, like they vary. Like some investors will tell you, no, revenue speaks louder than IP. Others say, okay, IP is so fundamental. Like we got sued 3 times in our journey, so we don't want to risk that. So you hear all these voices, and all of them help us to fine tune and recalibrate to what is more like an optimal usage of the tool and messaging as well.
Yeah, no, it really is amazing, not only the product you've created, but I just love you sharing about the process to get there, right? Like we are sort of helping an entire field see that there are other ways that they can use these, signals to tell them, is an idea worth what they think it might be worth? Is there competition that they know or didn't know about? Can you unearth it? Have you truly found something novel, like found an area that has very little patents in, and therefore gives you just sort of huge advantage that you can almost sort of try and build a moat around these sort of areas and protect them? And, like this is sort of a fascinating part, I think, of innovation, where more and more as technology becomes a huge differentiator, people who have those insights will have competitive advantage on deals. There's just no 2 ways about it. And this product obviously offers them a huge opportunity there. So for you then, like looking forward and thinking about, the future of patentability, the future of intellectual property, right? You're on at the moment. You're here thinking about this very focused, service that you have at Evalify and how it can help people make better investment decisions quicker, sooner, faster. What are you excited about when you look ahead, especially in this field of intellectual property and patents and so forth? For many people, it's probably, especially because it's an area that you typically need lawyers around, it's sort of murky and maybe unknown to many people. Obviously, yourself as your ex-IBM, most patents of any company on the planet, or like you come from this world. So, what do you see as you look forward in the future of intellectual property and patents for entrepreneurs? How it can affect innovation and how startups is built?
Yeah, that's great. For example, having compass like Evalify can give you unlock opportunities that were not even visible before. And even founders are surprised they were not so innovative like they thought, So, a simple Google search will not help because the information that is contained in patents is not really easily accessible, and you need to have a very specific
readable
query to search.
Yeah,
for
very
that.
hard to understand the language. Yeah,
absolutely. And then we are so, and you may be lucky that the patent is not in a different language, because if you're looking for that in English, then your patent might be in Spanish or Chinese or Japanese. So there are so many things that we are easing up. So basically, a founder and an investor can be relying on the shoulders, of a giant, which is the tool, in order to have that competitive advantage. One thing that we didn't cover is even be able to pivot early enough, not waiting for the right product market fit, and then realizing that you're either infringing on a corporation with a patent, or simply there is already a populated market in that direction that you haven't seen before with your business analyst report from the business side, right? So there are so many, and then patents. You can see all the patent wars as it happened, between Apple, Samsung, and all the big players. They can be a very difficult burden for the business, either if you're small or big. And so as a compass, the tool I'm very excited about the opportunity for the future. It's already a reality, right? Offering this opportunity to founders to discover what can go well and wrong, and more in a different way with their company. And knowing that as early, with the excitement of a founder at the beginning, and then giving that opportunity as well to the investor that usually spends 3 minutes on a pitch deck to get that's immediate score and have a yes or no decision, but also give information and feedback to the founders and have that conversation right away. Imagine I'm pitching to you now, we are in the same room, I just upload, this happened in reality already, I upload the pitch deck on the platform, and you get to ask questions have you checked this? Do you know about this customer? Do you know about this company that has protected this patent here? And you can even check the patents that have been abandoned and understand why they have been abandoned, and say, okay, maybe this idea was not good, so we should skip this feature. We should learn from this company. We even got people contacting inventors on LinkedIn to understand more about the idea. So all these scenarios were simply not possible before. So that's why I'm so excited about what's happening already. But then the next part will also be, what are the adjacent possibilities of that idea? Where else can you patent it? And we actually mastered that with our, former company in Finland, which is actually called the Adjacent Possible. And that's how the company we were mentioning before, how we got in touch with the studio. And that's what excites me, because on one hand, you have the risk. So we're taking you by hand and telling you how you can de-risk your investment. On the other hand, you have the opportunity side, which is where else can you work on, what other features can you implement, and where is a market for you there?
Yeah, no, it's really amazing, to hear not only what you're currently doing, but the future of this stuff and other opportunities it starts to open up. As you say, people being able to contact the inventors directly and, engage with them, identifying other competitors that were maybe invisible, but now they're there. Simple examples, as you say, then as adjacent possibles. It's a great idea where you might be focusing on one specific area with your idea, but what are the adjacencies and the possibilities, as you say, that go around? Could you innovate the idea even further? Could you build a moat around it? So it just seems like there's so many different ways that you can go with this, especially after you've solved this initial sort of I guess it's like the entry point for people to really start understanding the protectability of their idea, the patentability of their idea, any impacts of intellectual property on it, in a way that you don't have to be a lawyer. Like, this is probably the thing that, again, is a bit of democratization, if you will, where someone like myself can sort of upload a deck and then get this feedback, and in language that I can understand, that I don't have to be necessarily a lawyer to sort of get my head around, where this is at. And I just think it's going to be a real sort of game changer for not only existing investors and VCs and financial institutions that are in the market and inundated with thousands of business ideas all the time. I think it's really going to help, the industry overall start to really understand and, I guess, respect the importance of protecting ideas, or recognizing people who have created them in the first instance, and paying your sort of dues to them, I guess, is the way to think about it, and maybe even connecting with them on their work. It's fascinating, just to see where this is going to go. So really, for yourself then, on your own entrepreneurial journey, is there something that you're sort of most excited about, or something you feel is going to be the next iteration? You've talked about learning music, teaching yourself, entrepreneurship. I think you can only learn it by doing it. You can only read so much books or read so much music, but at the end of the day, nothing beats actually performing or attempting to sort of actually teach you. So what are some of the things you're thinking about on your entrepreneurial journey that you're looking forward to either tackling or improving, or getting more exposure to?
Oh, for sure. I mean, it's a type of journey that really makes you face yourself in the most abrupt way, let's say, and you understand all your growth areas if you're disciplined enough and have your eyes open. Of course, it's very important to have mentors, and in that journey, actually, what is not so much covered is mental health of founders. I would say that's the number one priority. So it was just a recent experience that I had. It's a silent meditation retreat that I did in Spain, and you basically spend a week where you don't have access to phone, to internet, to anything. Like, you can't touch the phone, and you have to be in silence. So it's a bit of a weird setting, but then you're confronted with yourself for a week, and you do the meditation. There are guided meditations and walks. There are some, there is like an instructor. But at the end of the day, it's a great experience that I will do actually maybe 2 times per year as an entrepreneur. That's really what excites me, because you have a way to clear your pathways, find silence inside yourself. I will stay maybe 2 weeks this time, as it's a long journey, but you actually have the opportunity finally to be with yourself and process some of the stuff that have been pending and you never had the opportunities in this very busy life to do. And you actually take a moment for yourself to reground. And there are also other people, like a group of 10, for example, but you can't do anything with them. You can't talk. So to me, it was a very important experience. I recommend actually to founders to, first of all, focus on their mental health, because it's a type of work that really absorbs you in many different ways. We are with you, like, we have calls sometimes 6 a.m. in the morning or 1 a.m. My time, and it's like, this life, and then trying to win a customer, and there is so many things, the fundraising and things that we are not even never prepared for, because it's a new venture. It's always a new thing. So even if you would be a serial entrepreneur, you have always new challenges that you need to overcome, and that's why the mental health of a founder is very important, because that's what really stays with you, and you need to make sure that it's a responsibility actually to have it over time. So that's one for sure excitement. And then, of course, building up on what the technology is currently offering. And I don't even know what to get excited about in 2 years, right? There are so many new technologies that are getting in the market now. And if you have seen the evolution in the past 2 years, and I can't even imagine what's going to happen in the next 2. So that's actually what really excites me, even besides the Evalify product itself, right? It has its own roadmap, but we might even be able to adjust our roadmap according to new technologies that will come up on the way.
Yeah, I just also want to thank you for sharing. I think what is, as you say, not spoken about enough is the mental health side of being an entrepreneur and like finding these moments where you can find yourself as well and take a break from the incessant pressure of trying to build a company from nothing, right? As you say, we're building Evalify together. We're building Nobody Studios together. There's endless calls. There's things beeping. There's phones. There's emails. There's people asking questions. It's high stakes. So I always love when people are able to share, interventions they've made that help themselves sort of reset or refocus or get time for them to clear their mind a little bit and actually have clarity about, why are they doing this? What rewards them from doing it? Be with themselves, as you say. For me, I'm a huge fan of journaling. It's helped me massively of just like getting ideas out of my head, confronting a lot of the ideas, good, bad, the demons, the excitement, all of these things that reside within us. And it's great to hear you share one of the things you've tried of this retreat, being with yourself, for a week with no devices, with no distractions. We live in the attention economy, like everything trying to grab our attention, but to find that clarity and that peace of mind is great. And then you're like, I'll do this twice a year. It's so healthy for me. So bravo. And thanks for sharing that. And
it's a necessity, right? It's not a luxury. It's a necessity.
I couldn't agree more. I'm never one of these people who sort of have this work-life balance. I feel like you're living your life and you have to make choices and spaces for things that you enjoy. And, we both love what we do, which is building companies. We both love music. We both love finding time for ourselves to be fit, to be healthy, exercise, mental health, whatever it might be. And it's you have to make space for those things. They don't just happen, and intention is important. So thank you for sharing some of the things that you're trying and are working for you, and I'm sure that's going to inspire many other founders out there. And I'll make sure I get that and put it in the show notes so people can actually research it and maybe even give it a go themselves.
That's great. Thank you.
Right. Well, look, it's always great to spend time with you. It's been fascinating having you on the show. Thank you for sharing your own journey. One day we'll get you back to tell us how you got into an orchestra without being able to read music and still got through the exam. I'm betting you were just like, hopefully they picked a number near you. Who knows? But it's been a pleasure to have you on, and thanks for sharing your story, William. And look forward to continue to building Evalify and Nobody Studios with you.
Thank you so much for having me, and then thank you to everybody listen to us.
Thanks so much for listening. If you found this episode useful, make sure you subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcast app. Please consider leaving a rating or a review, as it helps others find our podcast. For more episodes and details about the show, visit barryoreilly.com, and we'll see you on the next episode.